Welcome in Dice Goblins, Math Rock Collectors, those who use the virtual tabletop roller, and I guess even the psychos who don't own a single dice and always need to borrow a set from someone else. To another episode of the Cloaks and Capes podcast. I'm your host, Robbie. I only roll gemstone dice, and it's a problem, Landis. And along with me, Kali. I jail dice, and they still kill my characters, Scales. And our guest today, of TikTok tabletop RPG fame, TTRPG, if you will, MrShickdance, Sean, welcome in. Did I say that right?
TTRPG? What did you say?
No, your name.
Oh, yeah. yeah. That was fine. I just got spelled at and I got confused.
That's such a mood.
Yeah.
Well, welcome in. We're so happy to have you here. We continue the trend of basically just cannibalizing all of the great talent from tabletop RPG TikTok and bringing them here onto our podcast and trying to siphon off of your fame and talent.
I was unaware I had any, so if it exists, you're welcome to it. How's that sound?
Oh, that's not true. You got quite the following over there.
Well, you did. As of this episode's release, probably not anymore.
Yeah, it depends on when this comes out.
I guess.
Just some guy on the street.
So I have to actually ask, first off, I guess right off the top here, what was it that got you into D&D and led you to wanting to make content around it?
What if I gave you one guess? Would you be able to figure it out?
I'm gonna try. One guess each. Kali, you go first.
The first one's probably gonna get it.
What? No. That's my answer if it's right, though.
What?
Roll to deceive?
I don't know. I feel like you and your friends probably played tabletop games for a while, and then you were just like, well, this is what I do anyway, so I might as well make content for it.
That is... I hope that was correct. I didn't have any friends, so no.
Oh, well, it was half right then.
I rolled a natural 20 for deception, so if you would have been right, I would have had it. I
don't know if that's how that
I don't know. I guess that would have been mine is that I didn't really have any friends, and I just leached onto my roommate playing D&D, and then, that's here I am now.
See, you guys are a lot more social than I am. That's crazy. I'm learning so much. It was Critical Role.
I guess that would have been a pretty easy guess. Yeah.
It's funny though. I hate to suggest that because people get mad when you assume that that's why they're into D&D. Like no one likes to hear, "Oh, you watch Critical Role?" Like no, it's more than that.
Yeah. I fully understand that it has this whole, this whole aura around it that people just don't like for whatever reason. But it is one of the things that got 5e to be as popular as it is. So love it or hate it, it is fundamental in the success of this industry.
It's what brought me back because I played end of 3.5 through a lot of 4E, played a little bit of 5th edition, and then kind of stopped. And then when I started watching Campaign 2 and then gave my life over to it, that's when I'm like, you know what? I can be that good too. And maybe someday I'll get there, but I came back and it's been nonstop ever since.
There's no need to compare yourself.
I will say this.
I will go to war with people who believe in Matthew Mercer effect or something.
I think that I'm pretty good, all right?
Yeah, you are.
But the number of times that I will do something or plan something, specifically plan something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that week, something similar happens on Critical Role, and so my players are like, where'd you get that from? And I'm like, I've had this for him. It's sure you did.
Yeah.
Make sure you thank Matt for the idea. And I'm like, you mother.
I named them Avantika in 2003, dude. Okay, get off my back.
I'm fortunately able to avoid so much of that. I don't watch Critical Role. I watched the Amazon series of it.
Vox Machina.
Vox Machina. I really love that.
Animation's so good. It's such a good show.
There's definitely been a few times where they're like, "Oh, did you get that from Critical Role?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't. Maybe."
Yeah. Yep. You actually have the excuse of I don't watch it, so there's no way that I did. That's here's Kali's thing though. I'm gonna give you Kali's secret. This is for everybody out there. If you want to be as good of a DM as Kali is,
great.
Rip off as much as you can from George Lucas.
The hero's journey.
Bullshit force visions.
I would say bullshit force visions for sure. That's absolutely part of I'm deep in that repertoire right there. Absolutely. No, if you want to rip off one of my games, just make all the NPCs hot and romanceable and then let people smooch with them, and they'll be pretty happy.
There was definitely a while where every time like an important NPC popped up, it was hot, a tiefling, or both. I think you've been starting to try to move away from that. You've been getting better about it, but
oh yeah, no, I've definitely had to vary things up, but it like without fail, there will be 3 to 4 characters in a campaign that follow some of those like tropes. Absolutely.
Yep.
Just happen to, be a little bit attractive.
It becomes the problem of like now I have so many repeat players that they expect that they get to play in my game. Like, oh, is there going to be like a cute elf I can smooch with? Probably.
You know what you need to do? You need to throw like a Hunchback of Notre Dame at them, but who is thirsty for them, and see who goes for it.
Oh, yeah.
You know what?
Give him the heart of gold and be like, how come nobody wants to smooch Hunchback?
No, I promise you one of them would. You know who it would be? It would be Liz. It would be Buttered Apple.
100%.
Every group's got a Liz. Every group's got one of those Lizzes.
It's usually so funny. It's so funny too. We're gonna call her out, and it's okay because she's part of Cloaks and Capes. She's one of our artists.
Yeah, she's one of ours.
When she first started playing, one of the questions that she asked me, because she had came up with this character and she had watched us play so often, so she was really kind of set on like, I really want to like be my character, be like a good performer and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Kali's campaigns is all about making out with as many people as you can. And so she's like, everybody's so horny and thirsty, and like that's Liz's personality too. So she's like, but like that's not my character. So like how do you separate and stay in character? And at this point now, with that same character, she's finally just embraced it.
Oh yeah, no. I'm gonna tell you that character is the thirstiest of all of them at this point.
She finally just opened the floodgates.
Yeah.
Speaking of characters, though, the thing that we brought you on today to talk about today is on our outline here we have, that looks all super official and great, how to craft a collaborative backstory. We're not gonna say that proper about it. The reason and the way that I came up with this was I actually had someone come into the Twitch chat the other day and ask, is it common for a DM to change your backstory? And I thought this was an interesting question for sure. Obviously, I need more context. We're not necessarily going to specifically talk about this particular story, but that's just kind of where I want to start with. Is it common for a DM to change your backstory? Let's just start there. Sean, why don't we start with you? What would you say if someone new came and asked you that?
Baseline rule, just sort of like generically apply to all situations. I would say changing the events of a backstory is a no-go. Changing their context is fine.
Yes.
I think both Cal and I can probably agree with that.
I was going to say, like, because I'm thinking, like, okay, if it says in your backstory, my sister died, I'm not going to then say, no, that event didn't happen. But maybe that event didn't happen the way you think it did. Maybe they are still alive. Maybe something that you don't know about happened, because I know Robbie's just waiting to pound something. I was about to call you out.
I was like, that's really interesting, because I remember writing a backstory with my whole family died, and it turns out they didn't.
I feel like I've walked into something here.
I feel like every one of our guests could probably say that. This show is really just an opportunity for me and Robbie to air our dirty laundry.
Yeah, that's what tends to happen. Or like something else that I think is probably more common when it comes to change, or like you had mentioned, the context of it, right? If you have in your backstory, because a lot of times you might join a homebrew setting, or if you're a new player, hence why you're probably asking a question like this, you might have came up with the name of a town or a village, right? And your DM's gonna be like, look, love what you have here so far. You weren't born and raised in West Philadelphia, though. That doesn't exist in Faerun.
Good character idea, though.
Something
we could make a TV show about this.
Yeah, maybe.
I gotta record a TikTok before it gets burned.
So things like changing locations is something you should definitely probably be aware of. But if you're getting into D&D for the idea of collaborative storytelling, be open to, I think, two things. And the first is your DM maybe suggesting location changes, timing changes, things like that. Backstory should always fit within the theme or the setting that you're creating, and session zeros, talk with them. That type of stuff hopefully is set up before you come up with whatever it is. I think the biggest thing, though, is definitely allow for flexibility. there are some people that like to have, I don't want to say control over their story, but we all have certain.
Well, there are definitely those people.
There are definitely those people. None of them in this room.
No, God, no. I hate that
but
shit.
there are people who at least have ideas of where they would like their story to go, right? And I think that I always try to take into account for that, right? I don't want things to happen to your character that you don't want to. But at the same time, I think part of the magic of tabletop RPGs is you don't quite know what's going to happen, right? So that's where I think you need to allow that flexibility of you've kind of come up with your background, but now where the campaign is starting, who knows where things might go.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. Like once the player, in my experience, every campaign I've ever run, the backstory process is almost like handing in a rough draft to your editor and then them handing it back to you with a few notes, and then it goes back and forth like that. Like it's never just like they hand me a story and that's immediately put into the campaign, because nobody on either side wants that, right? It's always usually a more collaborative, like, they ask me for what the setting is like, what some of the things they might know about it are, and then they put that into the backstory. And it's more like a tennis match than just like they hand it to me and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to ignore half of this shit. That never happened, So I don't know what a player who had that experience might feel. But I do think that if it's not more of a collaborative effort, then it is not a bad sign, but just sort of like something you might want to talk with your DM about before the game actually starts. Be like, hey, can I get a little bit of feedback on like what you thought I handed you, or like.
Yeah, in the example that kind of spawned this whole thing, the players found out about the changes in the campaign as the DM said, this is what actually happened, and not in like the perspective kind of shifted, and now with this new information, it makes sense. It was just like, I needed this to fit the story.
Well, I think, I use a dossier like you do, Robbie, but on mine, I always have a couple of questions at the end that I think are really interesting to ask players about their characters. One of which is, what is your favorite aspect of your character? Like, what do you find to be the most interesting? What story elements are you excited about exploring with this character? And then the third one is, I always ask, how do you imagine this character dying? Because I think asking those three questions can really give you a good idea of what the player is looking to get out of their experience of playing this character. And those I take as my kind of 3 set in stones. That isn't to say like, oh, I imagine my character dying, going out, fighting at the front of an army and being, this brave moment. That doesn't mean you're going to die that way, but that means that that's kind of the character trope that you're looking at. You want them to get to a point where they're leading a big army. Like that's what they're moving towards. And those kinds of 3 answers are things I'm never going to, as the DM, say like, well, we're just going to ignore those. Those are your 3 big things that you gave me to work with. It's the stuff that's kind of around that I think is where the DM has a lot of opportunity to make changes and make shifts.
Yeah, it's almost like when you get a backstory, it's a player handing you a checklist of different like plot hooks you give them, right? Like to tie into your.
Yeah, that's a really great way to put it.
Yeah, you could just say like, oh, okay, they have this guy this is the asshole guy. We'll just put a big question mark, but he's the asshole. We can move the asshole to be tied into the major plot that I have going on. That gives them an inherent like, they want to get in on this because this guy sucks, right? That's the stuff that they're handing you. It's not necessarily like, oh, how they felt about their relationship when they were 14 or whatever. That stuff, great for character development for them, but you're looking for the plot hooks, the things that can get them tied into the being invested in your story, right?
Yeah, when it comes to like things that your DM might ask you to change, and hopefully this is the stuff that happens early on, but they definitely should be asking you when they want to change something, so you kind of see that it's coming.
Yeah.
But like as a DM in one of the first campaigns that I ran, I had this idea of, there's this big apocalyptic cult, and from long, long ago, and over time it splintered into all these different factions. And I had this cool idea of tying everyone's backstory to a different one of those factions. So as they start to sort of realize that all these cults are tied together, they begin to kind of realize like, oh, all of our paths are diverging into needing to stop this one threat, and we're all connected. So, part of that for me early on was being like, hey, I see you have this cool thing in your backstory here. How do you feel about cults, right? So that everybody was kind of on board with the idea that, like, you know what, there's this cult that's that has to do with all the bad things that ever happened to me, and it'd be really cool if we could go and defeat them, right? So, like, sort of small things like that. And it's also fine for you as a player, for some things to kind of be set in stone, or some things to be off limits. One of the things that a lot of people I think have trouble with, have fears of, is the idea of, putting in certain NPCs, putting in families, and worries that they might then be used as plot hooks. They very well may be. So if there ever is certain ones, and DMs, you should definitely be asking this in session 0 as well. If there are NPCs you want off limits, please let me know what they are.
I think there is a spot, especially at the beginning of the game, for players talk to your DMs about things that, of course, that you are interested in, but also things that you are not interested in, because those are just as valuable to us as a DM. And Robbie, I'll never forget when I played Ember for you in your Call the Netherdeep game. One of the things that I talked to you about very early on, Ember had terrible parents. They were horrible to her. And one of the things that I talked about was, I do not want a story of her making peace with her father. Her father was terrible to her, and I am not interested in exploring forgiveness for him in any way, shape, or form. And so Robbie knew, okay, I can make this dude a Saturday morning cartoon villain. He's super evil.
She's just the worst.
He's the worst.
I love that.
Great.
Yeah, that's a good thing to bring up too. Like, if you have things that you're like, I want this to remain golden in your backstory, that is also a fine thing to bring up at the start. And your DM should be able to respect that without being like, well, now I can't hold your dad against you. Whatever. Stupid. Hate this game. Which there are definitely DMs like that. Don't get me wrong. You want to leave those tables as soon as you hear that phrase.
That's a red flag for sure.
Yeah. That is a Chinese airport with how many red flags you would be saying there.
Look, and another great example was when Rosalind found out that her family, she got isekai'd to a different world, and there was like an Exandrian version of her family there, and because they had bad guys that were looking at them and following them and wanting to get revenge and stuff, she's like, I don't think that Rosalind can get to know them, because if the bad guys find out and then they're threatened, like she couldn't live with herself.
Yeah.
And so now me as a DM, I'm like, all right, cool. So a character who is in this world now, who doesn't have a lot of her own backstory NPCs here, now has a choice between getting to know different versions of them, which could be really interesting and really compelling, or not. Like, that's not even a choice.
Right.
If the choice is that the bad guys are going to go after them if I get to know them, or I don't get to know them, then the bad guys don't go after them. Like they're off limits, because that's just the better, sort of story choice there, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what a backstory isn't, right?
Ooh.
Because I think that there's a lot of maybe new players, whether maybe they have some preconceptions about D&D, maybe they don't have some preconceptions, right? Some players come in and they've been told that the way that you play D&D is you can do whatever you want, right? Like, it's like a video game, but you can do whatever you want.
It's better than a video game, I'll be honest.
It is better than a video game, for sure. What isn't a backstory from your perspective as a DM or as a player? What do you think that a backstory should have? What's it used for?
It's just, backstories are just understanding your character at the moment you take control in the first session. That's all you really need them for. And then it's like, reference stuff after that point. But their mindset going into the first session is essentially their backstory. Everything from that point on is just the character discovering themselves, what they're doing moving forward, the world they're in, and sort of who they're surrounded by.
I really like that, because that's the way that I play most of my characters. I will, I will give you the backstory. I'll give you all the history kind of up to that point. And even after we start, like I'll still come up with like memories or things that have happened to kind of help fuel role play. But like whatever mysteries or like plot threads, like plot hooks that I've given the DM, once we start playing, that point in time of where the campaign picks up, as a player, I don't want to know anything else that's going on. I don't want like a hand in doing any of it or like figuring any of it out, because I guess I'm method in that way. Whereas like I just like to be the character and respond naturally. And I know with Kali, the way that we work sort of collaboratively
Patreon?
is that. And you know what? Our editor's also just going to keep this in anyway. Great.
Oh, yeah.
So it's fine. 100%. Yeah. You'll see this one on TikTok.
I live in bits. You can tell me to stop.
Is we'll talk about, how she's feeling, what she would like, the directions, but then obviously the dice are ultimately going to kind of decide how those things go. But like me as the player, no, like I don't want anything to do with it. Just surprise me. Take me along for the ride.
That's the ride, baby. That's the lightning. We got to ride it.
When I get a player's backstory, like I say, I agree. The backstory is what has gotten you to the beginning of the campaign. Why is your character here and going along on this adventure, whatever it may be. And then, like I mentioned earlier, there are a couple of extra bits that I want to know that give me an idea of what kind of adventure you want to go on, because we all have the tropes that we love, right? We all have the moment of, I was, knocked unconscious. Maybe I was almost dying. And then at the last second, I'm able to be revived and my friends are all there to welcome me back. And like, we all have like the tropes.
Or the Captain America, I can do this all day.
I can do this all day. We
yeah.
all have the tropes that we love. So when you're giving me your backstory, it's great if you can establish some of those tropes that you're into. Like, why is your character that way? You mentioned Rosalind, who is she's a hero. She's a young, plucky, dewy-eyed hero. And she is used to being able to take a hit because she grew up in this family of heroes where she wasn't really strong enough to ever be able to land a hit on them. So she got real used to being knocked on her ass. And that's what she was good at. So that's what she does when she fights. That's why she's kind of a tank.
Perfect.
Yeah. But that informs your DM of what is interesting to you and what you want to explore, at least for the beginning of the campaign, because those things are probably also going to change as things go along and you make new connections and see new things.
I will also just slide in here. Backstory is not amnesia. Your character does not have amnesia. Don't bring that to a table. No, don't do that.
I feel like there's a story here.
No, it is just a way of saying you make up my backstory.
Yeah, it's bullshit. It's just like, I'm a blank slate.
How many nickels would you have if you had a nickel for every time someone pitched that one to you?
Well, let's just say it's weird that it happened twice. Okay? No, I think there is at least a set period of time. Like a very famous example of this is Molly Mock from the second campaign, where he had amnesia, but then he had like months of a life and a character developed from not remembering who he was. Yep. It's not like he didn't remember and then walked into a tavern and met 4 strangers and they went on an adventure. That's bad.
Yeah.
At least have a period of time where you've existed as a person before you've, forgot.
Will you DM a one-shot for me and a few people where we all wake up at the exact same time, no memories, amnesia across the board?
But I'd force you to all switch character sheets.
Yes. Oh, I love that. No,
that's
once we sit down, that's actually
like, you played a barbarian? Okay, you're a druid now.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. No, so like the amnesia storyline, I think works in a very specific way.
I did it with Gem.
Yeah, you did it with Gem.
But to be fair, I did have memories of what was happening in the Sauron's Tower or whatever.
Yeah, and you'd been also around for a bit since losing your memory and had things to draw on, which is totally fine. But I will say this as a tip for DMs. If you do have a player who has an amnesia storyline, maybe you have something that you've worked out with them, I cannot emphasize this enough, how much I recommend do not wait until the end of the game or even the third act to let them get their memories back.
Oh, yeah.
Like when I had Kara, one of my players in one of my games, playing a character who had amnesia, that resolved at around the end of the first act because I wanted them to then grapple with having to reconcile the person that they had become versus the person that they once were, and then ultimately having to make the decision of who they were going to be, and that was what they grappled with for the rest of the game. And if you only give them 3 sessions to play with that sucks.
Yeah. You can even drip feed it to them. Like, give them little items that give them back hints of their memory and be like, who the fuck was I? I was kind of an asshole.
That's what she learned. She was definitely an asshole.
Yeah.
That I think is my biggest problem with the whole amnesia thing is when they get the memory back and suddenly they just revert back to their old selves as if none of that suddenly mattered. Yes, absolutely. You know what? The best example of that, I don't know if we have any Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fans here.
I do. I've seen that.
When Fitz came out of the framework.
Yes.
And so he had both those like the memory from his life as the leader of Hydra still there, but as himself now, how did I do all that and like living with that? Oh, it's so amazing. Such a good show. Go and watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It was so underrated.
Yeah, it actually very was underrated. That was a good show.
I haven't seen that actor in anything since, and and I'm sure he's probably in stuff I went and looked, but it's so sad. So good.
They were both good, the Science Kids.
There's something that you had mentioned earlier, Sean, that I wanted to touch on as well. And I'm going to start by asking both of you a question. All right? And I want you... No, well, we can't do that. There might be people listening to the audio version, so we'll just have you answer. Mm-hmm. What is, as a DM or as a player, the ideal backstory length in pages?
This is an attack on me?
Stop. I wasn't talking to you. I'm talking to our guest.
Interesting. Oh, man, now I have to divine a number that won't get this fight going.
Oh, this fight's going. This fight is already going, I promise.
Interesting. I would say, what if I went with like a super like CEO answer, like, oh, whatever makes you feel best about your character, like just right down the middle.
Listen, look, you do not have to worry about offending me. I am aware that I am an outlier.
No. I have players that have handed me like 24 pages, and I'm like, okay, this is all, I'm sure, great. I will not read this, but I do appreciate the effort.
All right, I don't usually write 24 pages. I'm not quite that crazy.
You're talking to somebody who makes bullet points, and I'm like, is this good? I'm going to show up and be somebody. But I'm one of those people who believes that like my character concepts aren't solidified until 3 sessions into the campaign, where I'm like, okay, this is what this guy is. I can play this for 40 sessions or whatever.
Can I guess who your favorite Critical Role player is?
You can.
Is it Sam?
Yeah. I have a whole like fucking half an hour YouTube video about the Bard's Lament and how good it is of an episode.
When he came in as Breas, and his backstory was just like one of the meme moments from campaign 2, spoilers.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I haven't gotten any further than that. I'm like, never changed.
Sam Riegel, or the Scanlan Shorthold, he asked Liam to give him the name or the fantasy name generator, and then he asked Liam what to be for a character, and that was the whole character.
Yep.
And you showed up and started playing. That's probably what I'm like. I just wait till everyone else picks their class, and then I'm like, I can come up with something.
Phoenix Wright, ladies and gentlemen.
Kali, just for the sake of letting you have your answer, what's the ideal backstory length?
When I'm playing as a DM, I usually like, if you can give me 2 pages.
Perfect.
Like that's all I need. Again, I love to write, and I love writing stories about my characters and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm gonna write you probably 6-7 pages of like a story that is happening. But I also don't do it like, because here's what would drive me nuts.
It's not like 7 pages of history. No, it's usually a moment.
It is one story, one moment that kind of defines the character and who they are, and it happens to be 6 or 7 pages long. If it was 7 pages of they were born and then they went to school and then
Silmarillion style,
I would die. I couldn't write that, and
then
definitely
they won
couldn't
a war, and if you could come up with a war to put in your history that I won, that'd be sick.
Yeah, no, I like literally. You're welcome to give me that as bullet points. Like if you want to give me like, half a page of like bullet points of like important moments they've had, for sure. Yeah. But yeah, no, I'll write like a 7-page backstory, but it's usually like a span of a few hours that happen where something important happened to them that sets up the character.
That's
so
perfect.
This is all to say, I'm also going to call out another one of our friends as well, because I know
hang on a second. What? Answer your own question.
Let's my own question.
How long is the ideal backstory? As I have to prepare to give you a new backstory.
A page. A page is fine. Well, and again, like you
really
said, Sean,
small print.
If you hit certain like points, like bullet style points, like that's enough, right? But for me, the reason why I don't need a lot, and we have a friend who was working on a backstory, and it felt like they were always working on it, and it's like, look at you don't need to have a fully fleshed out backstory before you sit down, because part of it is creating the moments that you want, the moments you need, as you go along. And, one of the things that I like to encourage people to do each week, and I usually give out like inspiration or something like that for it. Not everybody does it, and that's fine. But I'm always answering questions or asking simple questions to people and encouraging them to write it down, to remember it, because then those are the things that you can draw on throughout the campaign to like have cool moments. There was the one that sticks out to my mind the most is I was answering like a little questionnaire type thing, and it was, what's like a food or a taste or some sort of memory like from your character's past. And for my character who was a changeling who grew up on the streets, I was like, well, she's resourceful, doesn't like to, commit egregious crimes or whatnot. So I don't think she would have necessarily stole food, but she probably would have been able to rig up like her own like fishing pole and then fished out of the moats and learned to cook for herself, right?
That's cool.
And a few sessions later, when we were waking up from like a long rest, I had asked the DM, hey, is there like a river or something around here that I could fish us some breakfast out of? And didn't expect it to be much, but then he made us roll skill checks, and we rolled cooking things, and it turned to this big thing that ended up with us fighting. What were they? Frog spiders?
What the? That combat came out of nowhere.
Oh.
I was like,
all of
fishing.
his animals are take two
animals.
things and smush them together.
I almost got killed by mole sharks in that one. I hated that.
I think they were frog spiders. By the way, fun fact: the name of a spider's tongue is labium.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a real thing. That's something you know now.
Like the constellation, the labium majora.
Yeah.
That's, from the laughing, I assume that's not right.
Yeah. No,
you know what? If you wouldn't have said that, I would have assumed that was actual knowledge that you were pulling as well.
I'll talk less next time.
So, two people out there who think, oh, it's not finished. I have to get my backstory finished before the campaign starts. No, you will come up with memories. You're like, oh, yeah, we were talking about that.
No, that's another good point. Yeah.
Yeah, we were, as you're going out, you're going to constantly be adding history in. And it doesn't even have to be big, grandiose, life-defining, character-changing things that you come up with. It can just be like, my mom had a rose garden, so that's why I like the smell of roses. Or my grandma made the best blueberry pie, and I ate way too much of it one holiday, and that's why I cannot have blueberry pie anymore. And see how those things end up informing your role-playing as you go throughout the campaign.
Yeah, that's one of the things I thought of earlier when you said, what isn't a backstory? And I was like, a backstory isn't written in stone. It can adjust. It can be added to later on, maybe not like earth shattering or character changing ways, but you can update it with like new memories, new like moments like, oh, can I have visited this place one time in the past? Like, yeah, sure. I don't care. But I had a player who they're someone who does not have a backstory at the first session, but they slowly like add to their character as the story goes on. They'll like, write up short stories of like a day they had one time, and they'll just send that to me and I'll read it and I'll be like, oh, I'm using this. But it's just, every person is different, and whatever works best for your character's development and the story you feel you want to tell is the right option. And it's, kind of a cheating CEO answer, but it is true.
Now, that said, while you absolutely can add to your backstory as time goes on, don't you come in here with your whole like, also my character was an expert virologist, so I would probably know, could I have advantage on this medicine check? I don't remember you putting that in the original backstory. No.
I went to medical school for 12 years. Do I have advantage on this?
Yeah, exactly. Like there's a line.
Yeah.
As I say, if that was in there before now, sure. Let me go and check.
If that was like, let me see the version history on that document, please.
Wikipedia article updated 2 minutes ago.
Correct. Yeah. Exactly. No, but like genuinely, like, because I am all about that. Like, if your character actually did go to medical school, like, and that was a big thing for them, you can have it. Like, this happens to be what you wrote your thesis on. Sick.
Yep.
You did this? That's crazy.
Great with an isekai character, because I don't have to worry about Kali trying to pull that shit on me. It's like, no, you don't know any of this.
I don't know.
Sit back down.
We're lucky I speak the language.
Well, yeah.
How much of a dick would I have been if I'd had you roll to see what the chances are that you even speak the same kind of common?
I have to spend the first 5 sessions learning how to talk.
That would actually be pretty awful.
Would be amazing.
Experience as a player.
Yeah.
Another player, not one of you two.
No. Oh, listen, Robbie and I would have made it work. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
What is the... I have two questions.
Mm-hmm.
Have a little bit of fun here.
Okay.
The first is, give me your... If you have any, what's the worst kind of backstory, the worst example backstory? What's your nightmare, backstory story?
It's the dude that walks in with amnesia like starting that session. That guy sucks. Like I woke up in a cornfield and I walked to this tavern.
And I'm
like
here.
That's nothing. Yeah. You're not
my
a character.
Where the tavern we're meeting at, my character blacked out there last night apparently, and they don't remember anything.
Yeah, they don't remember the last 30 years of their life. It's like you suck.
You didn't like establish. Where were your session zeros? Did you not establish in session 0 you need a backstory?
Well, exactly. Yeah, they usually do that for one shots where they're just like, I don't know, I have amnesia or something, whatever.
Come on.
That's fine for one shots.
Yeah,
but,
I'll let them get away with it.
Mine
because
is,
then I get to have a crazy ass NPC show up out of nowhere in the middle of that one shot, wanting to beat the shit out of them, and I don't have to explain why.
Why,
Dad? What
the
fuck?
You know why? I really don't.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't know, I'm not telling you.
And that's what brought us here to begin with. Roll
this
for
is
initiative.
Your fault.
No, I mine is when you send me a backstory of a character who's already completed. Like,
yeah,
you're already like your goal. What's your dream in life? Well, my dream was to be the constable of the city. Cool. What's your character do right now? They're the constable of the city.
They're retired.
Oh, okay. Well, so I mean, like, and it's not to say like that can't, like, the story can't be that they have a new dream now. That's fine. But when your character is just content and good and isn't trying to do anything,
yeah.
I have a confession to make.
Oh God.
I don't normally bring this up, but it's happened a few episodes in a row now. Sometimes when you make a point, I feel like you might be talking about me. And like you're using it as like I can't bring this up because it would hurt his feelings, but I have an excuse to bring it up here in a way that it isn't about him. Because technically Song kind of falls into that category.
So here's the thing with Song, right? You were purposely trying to make a character that I couldn't hurt, and I said challenge accepted.
I never said that.
That's precisely what you were trying to do. No, this is in reference to another player, actually, who has a tendency to be like, I want to play this character archetype, or like this, like I want to use this as my inspiration. And then from the word go, they're already there and have already accomplished the things that character has done. I'm like, well, no, we're going to get you to there. That's the point of the story.
I want to be Sephiroth, and I'm already Sephiroth.
And you're already Sephiroth. Yeah. Like, no, you're not Sephiroth yet. You're a cool swordsman right now, and we're going to get you to Sephiroth. Yeah. We'll get you there.
Right now, you're Seth. We're going to get there off later.
Right. Yeah, no. Right now, you're Seth, who works down at the horse stables. But we're going to get you there. Don't worry.
That wood sword's going to get better soon.
And that is one of those things like where it's like, players, be careful not to over design your character from the word go. Leave the DM some room to add on and make it interesting.
I will say, adding on to that, it's like you should be making the character's backstory relevant or equivalent to the level you're starting at, right? If you're a level 1 character, you can't be a hero already. That doesn't work. If you're a level 3 character, you can have a little bit more going on. If you start like level 10, like some campaigns do, go with God, do something crazy.
My character is the world's greatest assassin. The world's greatest assassin is not level 1.
That's very true.
I'm sorry to tell you. Like your character might aspire to be the world's greatest assassin, and maybe they have a great trainer and have all the things that would make them become the world's greatest assassin, but they're not there yet.
Yeah.
My first 4th edition character, because it was only supposed to be a one-shot, was High Forger Amethyst Firesteel, and then he had like 7 titles that each corresponded to a feat that he had done and was like the leader of a dwarven city that had been cursed by a witch and had most of his power siphoned out to where he was only 1/20th of the man he used to be.
Oh, that's...
I had a player in my Call of the Netherdeep game where they were a powerful wizard who was trying to get into the Cerberus Assembly and was powerful enough to be considered as a potential member of the Cerberus Assembly. But their backstory was that their partner made a deal with a hag to basically, she wanted the position instead. So she made a deal with a hag and it drained out all of his power and basically reset him back to the beginning.
Yeah.
And so like he knows like all these like things about like magic arcana and these powerful spells and stuff, but he can't do it anymore. He has to kind of walk the path again. And that's perfectly interesting and fun to do.
Yeah.
And also gives the DM some room to be like, oh, remember that person you totally screwed over to get your ability to do 4th level magic last time? They're back and they've heard that you're not as strong anymore.
They did that pretty well in Baldur's Gate where everyone was like, I used to be able to do crazy stuff and now I'm like sick and gross because of this tadpole. you have to have that like video game sequel moment where they get all the powers drained away. They go back to level 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I've always wanted to play an ancient dragon that got turned into a kobold. That just seems fun to me.
I love that. Yes.
Just like that ego put into a little tiny body. Oh, that's my shit.
I'm into that.
Hell yeah.
The first time you get hit with a moonbeam and it forces you back into your dragon form, you're like, what the hell?
Oh no, I'm huge.
I once had a character, and I knew this was happening. So I like I say this is like my worst example, but it's also like my best, most creative example. But I had a player who gave me their backstory just as a wanted poster.
Yeah.
So
Like
it
the
had
full-
like all the things that they were like wanted for.
Yeah.
And so they're like, it's
I
all
love
up to
that.
you. Yeah, it's all up to you.
And
Whether or not
especially
it's
because that
true.
doesn't that doesn't establish whether it's true or not.
Yeah.
Some of those might not be accurate. They might just be myth.
Yeah.
I had a character that their whole thing is they were isekai'd effectively into a new world, and they were trying to figure out how to get home. And when they were in a fight, Robbie, I borrowed this from you, the enemy cast a banishment spell on them, and it sent them home for the moment. And then the rest of the party broke the enemy's concentration, so they were brought back, and they were like, no, I was finally home.
I just
wanted
needed
that.
5 more seconds.
That's funny.
It was so good.
There's also a really funny thing or not funny, but it's like a really interesting sort of twist on the backstory thing that lets the group play with each other a little bit. I've heard people like they write down 3 things about their character. 2 of them are false. 1 of them's true.
Yes.
And like they spread those around the table. Like you all
Yes.
get like different rumors about the different characters. It's just fun little like, you can make up, tales about each other and hearsay and gossip. Some of it might be true. Some of it might be not. You might know something incredibly secretive about that, but you don't necessarily know it's true. I love that.
And allowing that to help to form your opinions. We do that in a game that we're in. One of the players, one of the rumors had to do with that she had like helped to organize a funeral for someone who didn't have any family left, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the player had chose to believe that was true without knowing if it was yet or not, and so that painted her, and she's an asshole, in a positive light for them. So now they kind of look at her as like, you act like you're mean and scary and whatnot, but like I know that you have a heart of gold underneath because of this rumor that I've heard.
Oh, I killed her.
No, I killed him.
I killed her.
Gave me
I
his
don't-
house afterwards.
I was there to make sure there was no evidence. That's awesome.
All right. Well, I think we're at the point now where we need to start wrapping it up a little bit here.
Cool.
So final thoughts. What's the one thing, if you could let players know the one thing that is going to make them the DM's favorite if they include this in their backstory? What would you
if they
say?
include in the backstory.
Mhm. What's something they can include in their backstory to make their DMs fall in love with them?
Blank spaces. It's what you don't put in there. The spaces you leave, like, I don't know what happened here. Go crazy. Those are the things that'll make your DM go, I will go crazy.
Yes, I will. Thank you.
You'll see that like 1,000-yard stare in their eye as they just forget everything you just said. But those are the best things I find, where if you're like, my character knows this situation, doesn't know every detail about it, so have a little bit of fun. Or there's like, something went wrong, an entity is responsible. I don't know what entity. It's crazy. Those are the things where a DM gets to play in the space. And those are my favorite things.
Absolutely. Kali.
For me, the themes you do and do not want to explore. I need to know what bounds do I need to work within, and what things are going to make your eyes light up when I start bringing it into the story.
Next fantasy game of yours that I'm in, my theme's going to be spaceships.
Well, guess what? In my Call of the Netherdeep game, I've got Omega Weltal's character is Cerulean, who's from a Spelljammer.
All right,
and
never mind.
in the last session, we just had a vampire attack.
The vampire.
I really want to talk about crypto.
Superman is my theme.
Oh, no.
All right, so something that we've started doing recently, these past few episodes, and I know it's popular. This isn't anything necessarily new, but we think we put a little bit of a new spin on it. We have a few "Am I the Asshole" stories here. We need your help with.
Oh,
But these are
yes.
written from the perspective of the character, not from the player at the table.
Interesting.
So the first one we have here comes from Sazerac, which we might have had a Sazerac Am I the
I think
Asshole
we called
a few
him an
episodes
asshole
ago. I think so.
previously, yeah.
So try
What a
not
dick.
try not to let that paint your
It's a bad sign when you have to submit multiple
Hey,
of these.
maybe they learned. Maybe the last time you guys gave them advice,
yeah,
they learned.
you know, maybe not this time.
Knowing what you know about D&D parties, is it surprising?
No.
Yeah. Our party rogue, a goblin, recently became a werewolf and has been happily lycanthropized. Lycanthropized? Like he's a werewolf now.
Okay.
But recently,
he's enjoying it.
Yeah. But recently, he has begun biting people randomly because he desires to increase his werewolf kin. This distresses our party cleric, who is more useful than he is.
Okay.
From a practical standpoint. I don't care what he does, as long as he doesn't affect me, but it's becoming a problem. Am I the asshole for using Remove Curse on him while he slept to prevent him from lycanthropizing others?
Okay, from the character's perspective, you're not the asshole.
Yeah.
You're like, look, serial killers might like taking people's skin off. We still put them in jail to stop it. You can't just go around biting people.
Do you think that maybe he should have gotten like a warning, like if you don't stop doing this, I'm going to take your lycanthropy away?
I don't know. I feel like once you go down the route of I need to increase my werewolf kin, I feel like you have crossed a threshold.
Right, but maybe if he would have been properly like incentivized or like told, it would have been like, all right, I will stop doing it at random such. Maybe he'll just do it to bad guys, or he will get permission. Because
that's
there
want
I think
is bad people.
Yeah. Maybe they just need a clan. They just need a pack to belong to.
At least when Dexter killed somebody, they were dead. They weren't given supernatural powers to kill better. I think
that's a Dexter I would have watched though. If all of Dexter's victims came back as like wraiths or some shit, like I'd be into that.
Okay, look, the goblin's an asshole. Okay, there's no question here. Okay, the question is Sazerac also an asshole? Because Sazerac obviously is trying to teach like the lesson of consent to the goblin, but is he not just doing the same thing to the goblin?
I don't think he is trying to teach the lesson of consent. I think he's trying to prevent people from becoming werewolves. Sazerac's a hero. He has listened to us. He learned from us last time, and he has now turned over a new leaf and is a hero.
Sean, what do you think?
I don't think they're an ass. It's hard to separate it from the characters and the players. The character's fine. The character could do whatever they want.
The player, you're kind of an asshole.
Yeah, do it. It's a discussion above board, but the character would be totally justified in removing curse from a monster who's gone through countless towns and turned the population into werewolves.
Yeah, well, and look, and if you have enough werewolf kin, the goblin can just go back and get lycanthropized anyway, right?
Yeah,
I mean, in theory, but yeah, no. Also, though, you need to have a talk with that other player and make sure everything is kosher because there's dissent brewing at the table
for sure. All right, for our second one, Sazerac, not the asshole this time. Our second one. Am I the asshole for seducing my coworker by slicing off another coworker's hand?
This is in character. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
By slicing off? That's what did it for your other coworker? Okay.
Context.
I mean, hey, whatever works.
Coworker, let's call him John, and I were getting another soon-to-be ex-coworker, Jeff, off the premises for doing some nasty, shady stuff. But it turns out that he paid off another coworker, Susan, to get him out before he could face the consequences of his actions. Now, it turns out that Susan was also doing nasty, shady stuff too, so I did what I had to do. Naturally, that meant slicing off Susan's hand. And John found this very hot. So hot, in fact, that he's admitted he's taken to me and would like to pursue a more personal relationship with me. Am I the asshole?
No, but the situation is very strange.
Yeah, there's okay, I mean, there's something going on here. Like, first of all, like, how is like they're doing nasty shady stuff? Like, did you slice off their hand because you were trying to arrest them and they were resisting?
Right, because if you just decided, like, I'm gonna cut your hand off, I feel like everybody at this place is probably doing nasty, shady stuff.
Yeah.
Nobody has hands anymore at this point.
Well, yeah, like, I don't think, like, are you judge, jury, and executioner or getting to cut people's hands off if they are doing something bad? I don't know.
I'm just still caught up on the whole, like, oh, Nice cut, dude.
Yeah, I think that's
going
the
on?
weirdest bit is that John's super into it. Apparently, John's like, "Oh my god, I need someone who can make a clean cut." Oh,
that's a sharp blade.
You
never noticed it. How sharp it was.
Do you oil that?
Do you need to? You wanna give me a hand with something?
Yo, you got a Whetstone?
I will say, I do believe that this is a Vampire the Masquerade game.
That makes a lot more sense.
Okay, you know what? That answers so much, actually.
Which also I feel like I have very limited experience with Vampire the Masquerade. So much so that I played or I play a Thin Blood because I don't want to learn all the lore and the rules. So then that way, like my whole character is basically, I feel like this is probably the Amnesia version of this, where it's like I don't know anything about vampires. I've just been bitten. That's how I'm playing this. I'm learning it all as we go, just like the character is.
Gotcha.
But what I know of Vampire, everybody's an asshole, right?
Yeah, it's kind of built into the rules.
Well, yeah, and like when you say like nasty, shady shit, like in real life, that just might mean like selling drugs or something like that.
Yeah.
That could mean a lot of things. When you say nasty, shady shit in the terms of vampire, you're doing something real bad.
Yeah.
Like, because they do real bad things and it's not considered nasty, shady shit, but like you're like Diablo-ing someone or it's something real bad's going on.
Hey, we have a guy in our campaign who is a Diabler.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, you know what's really cool too is that he has all of those in his head. So, and he's like a John Wick type figure. So he's basically All Might. He has like the council of them in his head. It's really cool.
That's that. Yeah, I would say usually you get killed for that real quick.
He was used by some secret society of hunters to do it. So he was like forced to do it basically. But
we've all been there.
All right, well,
We've
look,
all been
like, listen. So I'm gonna say, I'm gonna go with not the asshole, and I'm rooting for you and John. I'm glad that John's got.
Yeah, probably not the asshole for this reason.
Yeah. You might be an asshole, but not because of this.
Yeah.
Well, all right. That's all that we have time for today. Sean, thank you so much again for joining us. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show here. Please take this time to let people know where they can find you, what you've been up to, if there's anything you'd like to plug, and we'll make sure to include all the links and locations and ways for people to find those in the show description.
Sure. I am somewhere on social media. That is still unclear to me at this time. But if TikTok's still around next week, you'll find me there. Also on YouTube, I run a actual play campaign called Chaos Theory, which is very fun. It's 11 episodes in, so it's not super deep yet. And the episodes are available in podcast form.
Is that the one that Zach the Bold is in?
Yeah.
Can you hook us up with Zach the Bold?
I don't know.
As in put us in contact with. Sorry, as in like put us in contact with.
I can try.
That'd be great. Yeah, just be like, hey, I did this podcast, and if you thought this was horrible, lie to him about it and tell him how great it was.
Yeah, he's
Robbie,
currently.
you are shameless, and I love it.
Yeah. No, I appreciate the shamelessness. He's currently dodging wildfires right now, so
fair enough. We have a few guests.
Definitely wait for him to make sure he's alive and safe and happy.
Wait till he gets to his house.
Yeah, we've had a few guests that are out there. We hope you're all safe. That we've been waiting to hear back from. I remember when I saw the first clip. I didn't realize it was like a campaign. I thought maybe it was just like a one shot or something. But I saw all the people, and I'm like, damn, this cast is stacked.
Yeah,
it is stacked.
I don't get out of bed for less than a stacked cast, dude.
Continue. Chaos Theory.
Yeah, they're all great people. The campaign is very fun so far. Again, only 11 episodes in. It's on YouTube and in Spotify format for podcast. If you want to listen to it at work, the audio is a little bit more edited to be more user friendly for like podcast specific. Because I hate when it's just a Twitch stream ripped and put on.
Yeah, who would do that?
I've done it before in the past. I'm not shaming anybody. I just wanted to put a little bit more effort in this time.
I feel
and then
it.
never again. It's a nightmare. So that's what I'm doing mostly right now. I'm waiting to see where the leaves fall on everything else that's happening in the world. So you can find me there.
All right, excellent. And as for us, if this isn't your first time listening, you know what we're all about. But if it is your first time here, besides podcasts, we do a ton of homebrew stuff over at our Patreon and our Twitch channel, which currently includes 800 plus magic items and 12 subclasses. The most recent of which is our Cosmic Magic Wizard with nearly 20 new spells, which may or may not be balanced. And our Path of the Burning Heart Barbarian. You can find all of our links over there, so go and check that out. And we do have a free tier as well. So even if you're like, oh, I'll pay people for Patreon stuff, you don't have to. So go and check that out.
That said, we would like it if you did because we like to eat.
We would. Yes. No, absolutely. 100%. We have cats we have to feed. But that's going to be it for us, everyone. So thank you once again for listening, for watching. Catch you next time. Keep rolling.
The Cloaks and Capes podcast is created by the support of its listeners and generous Patreon donors. Special thanks to our myth makers and legends, Heartslot, Dolvik, Celtic Crow, Darkflux, Gamergal, Strix River, Tater Thoughts, and Capelli. Views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of its hosts. Editing and production by Aaron Pillen and music provided by Aidan Hageland. If you want to support the Cloaks and Capes podcast, check out our Patreon over at patreon.com/Cloaks and Capes. And check us out on Threads and Instagram at Cloaks and Capes TTRPG.
Thank you.
We love hearing that. I mean, you could be lying to us. We wouldn't know, but we do.
I'll never tell you.
Yeah.
That's the best part.
We never have to know.